Welcome back to Copper Star Precision, the channel dedicated to getting you more points at your competitive shooting matches. We are here again with the February 2025 NRL22 Course of Fire strategy videos. If you're new to the channel, welcome. And we're doing a little bit of a bridge version today, but I'm going to give you a couple options because this stage is another stage where we have a lot of choice. If you saw the last video, this whole match, it can turn into analysis paralysis. So I'm going to give you a couple options. You figure out what's going to work for you, the equipment you have, your flexibility, your mobility, all that good stuff, and hopefully it helps you score the most points during these stages and at the match. So without further ado, we have stage 2, do you believe in love at first sight, or should I walk by again? We have another 12 round stage. We've got 2 targets, one at 75 yards, one at 100 yards, and we have basically 4 positions on these props. So we have a sawhorse, positions are top of the sawhorse, shelf of the sawhorse, a tire stack, and a 55-gallon barrel sideways. We are allowed to use the tripod, the provided club tripod for this stage, and I advocate that you do. And the reason I say that is because in PRS rimfire, we're allowed to use tripods for rear support. And I see more and more stages incorporating the tripod, which makes me believe that starting next season, which the rules should be out relatively soon, and it starts in May after the championships, that they're probably going to allow tripods because the other sort of major rimfire, precision rimfire match does it, and they seem to be incorporating it more and more. So I think you should. It's good practice. Obviously, we've seen or encountered a lot of these props before, so if you have a favorite way of shooting them that doesn't involve the tripod, by all means, go with that, but I'm going to focus on some tripod strategies today. So on the start signal, engage targets from the designated props in the following order. We're basically going to go 1, 2, 1, so near, far, near, and then flip it, far, near, far, flip it back, 1, 2, 1, and then 2, 1, 2. So I want you to take a note at the target sizes here, and this comes down to that choice again. So it's probably easiest to move left to right or right to left or something like that, but recognizing that the target sizes, the 1.5 inch at 75 yards is only about 0.6 of a mil wide, whereas the 100-yard target is 0.8 of a mil wide. So the near target, the closer target, is actually relatively smaller. Now, if you have high winds, that far target might be more influenced by the wind, and that might make your decision about which target you want to engage from which positions. But basically, each string of fire, we're engaging one of the targets twice and the other target once. So if you feel that the smaller relative size target, which is target 1, is more difficult, the first and the third positions are the ones where you want to find your most stable position. And the second and fourth strings of 3 shots want to be the wobbly positions, because theoretically being a couple tenths wider should be an easier target to hit. So if you're not as stable, maybe you want to reserve those for the strings of 3 where we're engaging that quote-unquote easier target to hit twice instead of once. So let's go with that as a strategy. So the first sequence is 1, 2, 1, so that needs to be a stable position. Then I'm going to move to a non-stable position, back to a stable position, to a non-stable position. So that's how I'm thinking about the stage. I'm going to use tripod rear support. As I said, probably the most stable position is going to be the shelf of the sawhorse. The second most stable position is probably going to be the top of the sawhorse. And then the tires are probably the worst. And the barrel is kind of a little bit of a wild card because it can roll and your bag can slide across it. So if I had to rank these in order, I'd say most stable, shelf, second most stable, top, third most stable, barrel, super wild card, super wobbly, or at least has the potential to be tires. So my order is, because I want to go stable, not stable, stable, not stable, or less stable. So I'm going to go shelf, tire, top, right? So that's going to make a nice little triangle in this area. So I'm not doing a lot of movement. And then I'm going to transition over for the last string of 3 over to the barrel. So I'm going to stay localized in this area, get 9 shots off. If I need to do a mag change, do a mag change. If I'm running out of time, then I have the last 3 shots over here. But I'm worried about this area here. This is kind of like my triangle. But again, do it however you think will work for you. If you're super stable on the barrel, maybe you want to consider. You probably don't want to be jumping back and forth too much. But yeah, so anyway, so again, based on gear setup and tripod usage, I'll give you 2 examples here. We'll get the Ruger out of the way for now. Let's talk about CZ, which has an Arca rail and a flat bag attached. We're not going to need this. We're going to take this flat bag. When it comes to tripod rear stages, I want this pretty far forward because that's going to give me more room behind the rifle to manipulate it. So let's say I do my 2 shots or 3 shots from down here. So we start here. This is going to be in our hand, right? When we start the stage, we get down here and then we make a thumbs up with our hand. That goes around the tripod leg, and then the buttstock of the rifle sits right in there. So give yourself a thumbs up, find the tripod leg. We're going to get into a prone position, engage that way. Then I'm going to come up. This is my less stable position on this wobbly tire, and I'm going to just keep things simple. I'm going to drag the tripod towards me, give myself a thumbs up, bring this leg back to the buttstock, and then find far, near, far for 3 shots. And the important thing is about having that bag way out front. If the bag was here where it usually sits, then this tripod leg needs to be here. It's going to catch on things. It's going to be less easy to manage on the clock. So I want that bag way out front if it's attached to my rifle, so that I have plenty of room to manipulate the tripod in the rear. Now I'm going to transition back to the top, because I've decided that's one of my more stable positions. If ever I'm not pulling the tripod towards me, I need to grab the leg, I need to lift the tripod and just scoot it over out of the way. It doesn't even have to be in a perfect position. Here, I like to take a position above one of the legs. I find that to be pretty stable, because sawhorses have 4 legs, not 3 like a tripod. Sometimes you get a wonky leg. See how this may not be as stable, but if you put all the weight over 2 legs, sometimes you get lucky and it's a little bit more stable. So I had moved this out of the way by lifting it and pushing it to the right. Now I can bring it back and not worry about collapsing the legs. And here I find my target, 1, 2, 1. This whole time I'm probably using holdovers. It's a little much to dial. And then here we're just going to lift the rifle down, and then we're going to drag this towards us, not collapsing the legs. I might stabilize the barrel, give it a little bit of forward pressure just to keep it from rolling, and then 2, 1, 2 here. So that's how I would do it with an attached bag and the tripod. My budget Ruger build isn't as fancy, so we're gonna have to come up with a little bit of different strategy. And that actually involves a bag, but not quite in the way you think. I'm gonna do the same exact thing, except this time I'm gonna use the bag, which is normally like this, right? The wedge is like this. And because my bipod's attached, I'm actually gonna put it the opposite way. So in this position, I'm gonna settle the bag like that, and this bipod will be collapsed. And what's gonna happen is that this part of the rifle, again, I could put the rifle here, right? But then I don't get as much room again to manipulate that tripod. So collapsing the bipod and putting the bag upside down gets me a nice little cubby hole for that bipod. And here we're super stable again. And we're just gonna repeat the same process. You know, this is ridiculously stable right here, right? Rear support, supported way out in the front of the rifle. The greater the distance between your rear support and your front support, generally speaking, the more stable you're gonna be, right? Let's say I go to this position next. Same thing, bag's upside down. My other rifle's in the way. Bag is upside down. Makes a nice cubby hole for that attached bipod. Right, forgot to open the bolt when I'm moving, but this is also extremely stable. So whether you have an Arca rail with an attached bag, if you have an attached bipod, or if you have a bipod that you can take on and off easily, you may want to consider kind of using this bag opposite its normal way. Of course, you could always do it the correct way, get that nice and settled there. But again, you're not going to have as much room. You know, all of a sudden this leg is starting to hit this tire stack. So you may not be able to get this tripod right here in the perfect position. If I'm interfering with the tire stack, then I kind of have to like rotate it this way to get it for all the legs to clear. The further back you can get the front support on the rifle, the easier it's going to be, the more room you have to manipulate that tripod in the rear. So those are my tips and tricks. Again, encourage you to try and use tripod rear. And then if you think the relative smaller target is going to be more difficult to hit, then pick strings 1 and 3 to be on your two most stable positions, and save strings 2 and 4 to be on what you consider your most least stable positions. If you think there's high winds or there's some weird berm that's causing weird gusts of wind, and you think the far target is going to be harder to hit, save those for your more stable positions for strings 2 and 4, and do the opposite for strings 1 and 3. I hope these tricks help. If they do, let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video while you're down there and subscribe to the channel. Coming at you with more content on the February Course of Fire very soon. Until I see you next time, as always, score more points.